3 red laser dots jittered across our kitchen wall, dancing like tiny warning beacons. Sweat-slick barrels of rifles were pointed straight through our bay window, while my wife calmly stirred her tea, robe tied loosely, expression unbothered. "Step outside with your hands where we can see them," an officer shouted through a bullhorn. I opened the front door, wearing nothing but gym shorts and Crocs, squinting into the sun. "She wouldn't show ID to the HOA president," I explained helplessly. That's when one of the officers slowly lowered his weapon, narrowed his eyes at my wife, and of all things saluted her. "My name is Gavin Holbrook, 39 years old, a software consultant, someone who just wanted a quiet life inside Cypress Hollow. In this gated community, the HOA rules are stricter than airport security and far less forgiving. My wife, Anya, is ex-military, retired early, quiet, and unnervingly talented at assembling IKEA furniture with the same precision she once applied to tactical gear. And then there's Teresa Blanchard, HOA president, full-time neighborhood watchdog, and part-time self-appointed stormtrooper. She's the kind of person who keeps a spreadsheet logging what time everyone brings in their garbage cans. Her campaign against us began with a post-it note slapped right on our door. "Guests must register at the gate. It's required. No exceptions." Except, of course, my wife wasn't a guest. She lived here. Teresa simply didn't believe it. The flimsy yellow note fluttering in the morning breeze felt like a tiny declaration of war. The scent of fresh mulch from our flower bed mixed with the faint smell of someone's backyard barbecue. Normally peaceful, soon to be shattered. The absurd part: we'd been living in Cypress Hollow for 8 months. Our mortgage was auto-deducted. Our names were printed on the mailbox. Anya had even volunteered to run the community book club, a group Teresa immediately disbanded because military personnel might discuss classified information. That should have been my first clue. But I was still naive enough to think rational people could coexist in suburbia. Teresa escalated faster than a squirrel on espresso. First, she cited us for unauthorized occupancy. Then she claimed Anya doing yoga on the balcony at 6:03 a.m. violated noise rules, even though it was silent yoga. Soon after, a nervous neighbor confessed that Teresa had instructed them to photograph my wife's license plate. That's when we installed a ringcam. The footage was unreal. Teresa marched right up to our flower bed and measured tulip height with a ruler. The woman had turned stalking into a hobby. She compiled a full dossier on Enya's daily routine, what time she left for runs, which route she took, even which protein bars she bought at the grocery store. I only learned about this when Mrs. Patterson, from 3 houses down, admitted, mortified, that Teresa had pressured her for intel on the unregistered resident. Teresa apparently cornered her on dog walks, clipboard and stopwatch in hand, asking security questions. The psychological warfare escalated next. Teresa started slipping printed articles under our doormat titles like foreign nationals and community safety or undocumented residents, a homeowner's guide. Each morning, I stepped on a fresh passive-aggressive pamphlet. The crinkling paper became my personal alarm clock. Anya found most of it hilarious. "She's trying to get inside our heads," she said as she tossed another pamphletito there cycling. Then came another note. "Your tenant was seen exiting the home without proper gate code authorization. Consider this a formal warning." Anya snorted. "Should I wear a disguise tomorrow?" she asked dryly. I suggested a fake mustache. She didn't laugh. Outside, our sprinkler system hissed on, throwing rainbow mist across the lawn, a peaceful moment that felt increasingly fragile. Then things went from annoying to unhinged. Teresa began appearing at random times. 7:15 a.m. to inspect our mailbox positioning. 3:22 p.m. to confirm our garage door was truly regulation beige. She even knocked during dinner to inform us the tour porch light was 3 lumens too bright per section. 4.7 of the community guidelines. But the real crossing of the line came with the safety patrol. Teresa recruited 2 HOA board members to conduct their own wellness checks, slowly walking past our house, taking photos of our windows, our car, our garbage bins. When I confronted them, they claimed it was part of neighborhood watch. I reminded them we lived in a gated community with actual security guards. They just smiled and walked on. Then came the breaking point. She installed a trail camera in the oak tree facing our front door. She claimed it was for wildlife observation, but the lens was angled perfectly to capture everyone coming and going. I noticed a blinking red light while sipping coffee one morning. The audacity was unreal. I climbed the tree, removed the camera, and dropped it on her doorstep. She responded by filing a police report accusing me of stealing scientific equipment. Anya's patience was thinning. I saw it in the way she paused before responding to Teresa's increasingly ridiculous demands. My wife, who had survived 3 combat deployments, was being slowly worn down by suburban psychological warfare. She's trying to make us move, Anya said one evening as Teresa stood in our driveway measuring its width. Classic intimidation tactics. But she doesn't know what she's dealing with. Then came the day everything imploded. Anya was returning from a jog when Teresa physically blocked her path with a clipboard. "You've been reported as a security risk," she snapped. "Show ID or I'm calling the authorities." Anya just stared, deadpan. "You have 5 seconds to move." Teresa's face turned the same shade as our forbidden height tulips. She snatched out her phone and dialed 911, breathlessly, claiming a suspicious foreign woman was trespassing and possibly armed. The 911 call was a full-blown theatrical performance. Later, through a Freedom of Information Act request, I got the audio. Teresa's voice trembled with counterfeit terror as she described Anya as approximately 5'6", dark hair, wearing military-style clothing, possibly carrying concealed weapons, refusing to identify herself, and displaying aggressive body language. She even threw in that Anya had hand-to-hand combat training and might be dangerous if cornered. What Teresa conveniently left out: Anya was wearing bright pink running shorts and a tank top with a cartoon cat on it. Her military clothing was Target activewear. Her concealed weapons were a water bottle and house keys. Her aggressive body language was simply standing still with her arms crossed, waiting for Teresa to stop blocking the sidewalk. But keywords like armed, military training, and refuses to identify triggered a high-priority police response. Dispatchers didn't know they were dealing with an overzealous HOA monarch. Within minutes, patrol cars were racing toward our peaceful neighborhood. The gates couldn't open fast enough. Security guards scrambled to lift barriers as the cavalry thundered in. Teresa also failed to mention that Anya was a decorated military intelligence officer, fluent in 5 languages. 10 minutes later, SWAT arrived. Drones buzzed overhead. Our cul-de-sac transformed into a Tom Clancy novel, neighbors peeking through blinds, the smell of someone's burnt coffee drifting through the air, and the metallic clatter of tactical gear filling the street. The peaceful suburban morning cracked under the pressure of a looming standoff. Then an older SWAT officer caught a clean view of Anya through a scope. His face drained of color. He clicked his radio. "Stand down. Repeat. Stand down." "That's Echo Spectre. She's cleared Tier 1. Within seconds, rifles lowered. Helmets came off. One SWAT guy genuinely looked like he might cry. The tension that had gripped the street like a vice suddenly unraveled, leaving an eerie, surreal quiet. What followed looked like a military ceremony played backward. The SWAT team leader approached our front door, removed his helmet, and actually apologized to my wife. He explained that Echo Spectre was her classified call sign from intelligence operations overseas. Her identity was flagged in every law enforcement system in the country not as a threat, but as someone to be protected at all costs. The younger officers were getting the world's fastest crash course as their sergeant explained how Anya had dismantled terrorist networks, saved countless American lives, survived 2 combat injuries, and received commendations from generals whose names were still classified. The same man who was ready to breach our house 20 minutes earlier was now sheepishly asking if he could shake her hand. Behind her hydrangeas, Teresa stood frozen, phone recording, jaw unhinged like a malfunctioning garage door. Her entire self-inflated universe where her clipboard conferred power, where she was the authority, where she could summon armed response teams on a whim was collapsing in slow motion. She looked like someone who had just discovered she'd been playing chess against a grandmaster without knowing the rules. Teresa finally broke from her trance and hollered, "What are you doing? Arrest her." Instead, two officers walked toward her. One pulled out a notepad. "Ma'am, we're going to need to ask you some questions about filing a false report and impersonating a security official." The blood drained from Teresa's face faster than rain through a storm drain. Her phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the sidewalk. Turns out, Teresa had been filing reports on residents for years. Using a fake HOA-affiliated email ending in INV, she'd even photoshopped fake neighborhood watch badges. During questioning, she insisted it was part of her unofficial security initiative. The officers weren't buying it. Neither was the federal agent who showed up an hour later, asking about unauthorized use of government insignia. Then the scope of her operation unraveled. Teresa had compiled detailed files on 47 residents, complete with photos, daily schedules, and self-written threat assessments. Her computer contained hundreds of telephoto images, people checking mail, washing their cars, kids playing in yards. The fake badges weren't props. She used them to trick contractors, delivery drivers, and even neighbors into believing she had law enforcement authority. The federal charges stacked up: impersonating a government official, harassment, stalking, and filing false reports. Prosecutors described her as a one-woman surveillance state operating out of a suburban living room. During interrogation, Teresa insisted she was protecting the community, convinced she was the hero of her own story. When the HOA board realized the legal catastrophe looming over them, panic set in. Emergency meeting. Unanimous vote. Teresa was expelled from the board and banned from all HOA activities. The insurance company threatened to drop coverage if she retained any official capacity. Property values were at stake. Lawsuits were guaranteed. Teresa became a toxic asset wrapped in designer athleisure. The remaining board members resigned en masse within 48 hours. Teresa herself was charged with harassment, impersonating a federal officer, and even unauthorized use of a drone she'd borrowed from her nephew. The judge sentenced her to 6 months in county jail and a $5,000 fine. As the gavel dropped, Teresa shrieked. This is all because she wouldn't show her ID. Then the bailiff took her away in handcuffs.